When the Schoharie Creek reached an all-time crest, the floodwaters washed away not only homes, but the dreams of so many people. What you're looking at is a pile of people's lives here in Schoharie. That's the building supplies, the lumber, the insulation, the wood that went into people's homes. It's been stacked and trucked out every single day. To my right, these are household appliances. I mean, it's a mountain, higher than the water ever was. We have refrigerators. We have washing machines. We have water pumps. This is a person's life in this pile. This is their home, and it's piled up to be trucked out of here.
There were about 275 properties that were inundated out of 350. So that's 80% of the village was inundated in 4 to 8 feet of water. Included in that is 100% of the business district, every single one.
We are at the Schoharie Valley Railroad Museum. You can see the train car behind me, the height of the water about 7 feet over there. Now, in the front of this building, I mean, it's unbelievable. You can see the line of the water. Now, keep in mind, the Schoharie Creek is about a quarter mile to my right, and that water is at least 7.5 feet high on the side of this building. The force of the water picked up a piece of this and actually moved it down by the jail a quarter mile away.
We had conferred with the emergency management office, and although we didn't have any indication that the dam was going to break, the water was high enough that we activated the flood warning sirens to tell people to evacuate.
To play it safe. Better to be safe than sorry.
But at that time, I really, when listening to what was going on, I really thought that dam was in a good chance it was going to break.
We are at the Little Italy Pasta and Pizza Shop here on Main Street in Schoharie, and this was hit very hard by the rising waters of the Schoharie Creek. It's amazing to see it today, how it looks so different, and the smell of pizza is back here once again. The owner, Eric Goodrich. Eric, amazing what you've done here. Tell us a little bit what happened the day of the flood. I mean, you probably couldn't believe what was happening here in the village of Schoharie.
Day of the flood was chaos. The alarms weren't working in this village, and the fire department literally went door to door and with bullhorns down the street yelling for people to get out. That's been our big fear forever, that the dam was going to collapse. We assumed that was what was happening since the evacuation was going down the way it was. We assumed that we expected everything to be gone.
I can understand why people climb trees. I can understand why they get on the roofs, because that feeling is, I just have to get higher. We knew living in town that if the dam did break, we would flood, and we would lose our homes.
Schoharie Nurseries has never seen anything like this before.
We're used to spring floods, and we're used to the, when you get those runoffs from the snow melt and things like that. But, something like this, I just assumed that the stars all lined up, and it was just a hit that nobody could really predict or, justify or anything of that nature, But 8 feet of water where we're standing is just astronomical.
You look at the hardware store, totally empty, huh?
Empty, yes.
On Main Street, I bumped into Lizzie Hanauer.
I feel sorry for the people that lived here so long and have memories of their children going to school here or work and lived all their lives here.
This is what makes the spirit of Schoharie County so special. This sign on this closed-up business right now. Home is where love is. Rebuild Schoharie County, 2011. And that's exactly what these folks are doing. They're rebuilding. And this town is going to be better than it was before the flood.
People couldn't wrap their minds around it. They couldn't believe that it happened. We've turned a corner. We're in a recovery situation, and we've all decided that we're flood survivors now, and the only way to go is up.
We've been here 123 years, and we can't really have one big flood interrupt that, and you have so many people that really want you to come back. It's a community effort, you can't just pull out, everybody can't just leave.
It's amazing to see the spirit of everyone in Schoharie. Most truly believe they will rebuild. They will survive this flood. And this small village nestled in the beautiful Schoharie Valley will shine once again in the future. My next stop was in Rotterdam Junction. This small hamlet of less than 1,000 people was devastated in the wake of Irene. Sitting on the south banks of the Mohawk River next to Loch 9, a torrent of water flowed right down Route 5S from Pattersonville and filled the town with up to 10 feet of water. For many, it is a slow rebuilding process, but for others, they may never move back again.
All of a sudden, the water just came down Main Street slowly, and there's people running, there's cops ripping people out of their houses. Get out of here. I've seen it right from the beginning.
We are at ground zero for the devastating and historic flooding that occurred here in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Irene. We're in Rotterdam Junction. This is Loch 9. What you see to my right is the Mohawk River. Across the river is Canal Park, one of the most beautiful places to have a picnic and to fish and relax. And you can see it no longer exists. It's gone. It was flooded out. Of course, the 103 bridge has damage. Part of it actually collapsed. Now, the lock beside me, what happened is the water backed up behind it. It's flowing at a couple of the gates here, but there's still some blockage. And this backed up the water for miles on the Mohawk River. Now, the water in the Mohawk River was all the way up here. Now, this is a 16-foot increase in height. Tony Civitello. Tony, come on in here.
Yep.
It's a pleasure. You watched the river as it came up, and it was a frightening sight for you.
It was, yeah. I started measuring at 5:32 Wednesday evening. It was coming up 1 foot an hour.
We're on Lock Street now, where the flooding was probably at its worst point here in Rotterdam Junction. Here's somebody's life, somebody's home in this pile. And, you know, you look at it and you see this all through Rotterdam Junction, and your heart goes out to these people. They've lost so much, they've lost everything. Susan Torres, parents lived here for 45 years.
Yes.
They're with you now. You live up in Pattersonville.
Yes.
It was a life-threatening situation. They were literally stuck in this home.
Correct. My son happened to call me that morning. He didn't go into work. He wasn't feeling well. He thought he'd come down and just check on his grandparents, and gave me a call from his cell phone and said, Mom, Grandma and Papa's street is flooded. The whole Rotterdam Junction is closed off. You can't get in no matter what roads.
It's hard to imagine the destruction on this one street in Rotterdam Junction. All these homes completely destroyed. And to think about how deep the Mohawk River was here, it's just hard to imagine. But this tree tells the story of that infamous flood. If you look up here, you can actually see the mud line. The Mohawk River at this point was at least 10 feet deep.
I didn't know where my grandparents were because we couldn't get to them because the water was separating us from, she was on one end of town, I was on this side of town.
And you physically couldn't get there?
No, physically, I had to leave on the 103 bridge. They were evacuating over the 103 bridge and then by boat. And I luckily could drive across the bridge, but that was even scary in itself. They told us to drive like 70 miles an hour as fast as we could over that bridge because it wasn't safe.
People were refusing to leave. They didn't want to leave, and then all of a sudden the water came up so fast that they were trapped in their houses on their top balconies.
My son actually jumped on the neighbors. He climbed up on their back deck, swam, and then climbed, and then jumped on their garage, jumped into the water here, and then got back up through the roof, or through the window up here, got my mom and dad out on the roof.
This was a doorway, right?
Yes.
To another level?
There was a flat roof right up above where the black moisture barrier paper is, and that's where Mom and Dad sat, and the canoe came almost flush up to the top of that roof. And Matthew and his friend Gary again and the police officers helped to lower them into the canoe.
People's lives are now ruined. Everything that they own, their family heirlooms passed on from generations, sitting on the curb for the town to pick up and throw out. When the fire whistle blows, somebody needs help. And I mean, one day I might need that help, so I therefore decided to join, so I could help my neighbor, people I've known my whole life.
And to look at these people in their kids' school clothes. Tough.
Hang in there, buddy. I'm sorry.
Their beds.
I'm sorry, Tony. I know it hurts. But you know what? You guys are tough out here.
Yeah.
Everybody says people in Rotterdam Junction are tough.
You know,
you guys are going to come back out of this.
They didn't have much, but they had, they lost. Tough.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
You know, well, like I say, you know, we didn't get hurt that bad, but then people did. And our hearts go out to them.
The flood may have only lasted a few days, but the pain from the destruction will be with these residents in Rotterdam Junction for a lifetime. When we come back, one of the hardest hit states during Irene was Vermont. In the town of Wilmington, Vermont, the force of the Deerfield River literally washed away homes and vehicles, some traveling 4 miles downriver.
Faces of Irene.
Welcome back. In our next story, I want to share with you the time that I spent in Wilmington, Vermont, a beautiful little town nestled in the Green Mountains in the southern part of the state. This area of Vermont was ground zero for some of the worst flooding. In fact, many residents were literally cut off from the rest of Vermont. Over a foot of rain fell, and the force of the Deerfield River raged through the center of town.
They're telling me that I need to leave the street, so I just wanted to keep you updated.
I'm on East Main Street. This used to be the town hall, completely gutted because of the flooding from Irene. This right here was the town of Wilmington Police Department. And as you can see, completely devastated by the high water. Let me show you just how high the water got on August 28th when the Deerfield River flooded. This was the 1938 flood, which was bad. The 2011 flood from Irene, the highest ever.
I drive by that 1938 sign on the police, on the town hall every day.
And never thought.
Notice it and never think it's ever going to be like that again.
As you drive into Wilmington, Vermont, one of the most beautiful places you see is the Crafts Inn. This place was hit when the Deerfield River flooded. And the damage downstairs was unbelievable. Let's check it out.
The water line came to
You
where...
can see it right here. So you're talking probably almost 7 feet then.
The water came through that door and it just started gushing down. It's going to be nicer than it ever was. New windows and new doors, and I think we're going to...
So almost for the wrong reason, you get better.
Exactly.
You almost, you got
a second chance to do things over and maybe correct the things that you didn't do quite so well.
Or you thought you were going to do and you put it off.
So it's going to be okay.
It's hard to imagine when you look at the Deerfield River today how low it is. The day of the big flood, it rose so high, it basically flooded out the first floor of these businesses and homes to my left. Literally, the river was flowing through these windows. I'm at one of the quaint little shops here in Wilmington. It's called Quay Designs. And this is what this community is all about. Look at the sign. It says, thank you to all the great volunteers who helped us reopen. Mike, Colin, Marianne, Jack, Bruce, Phil, June, Bob. She names everybody. Some are family, some are friends, and some are complete strangers. But they all pitched in. Let's check and see how things are going.
All of the lower walls had to come down. At the back end, the entire wall had to come down. Everything had to come off the walls. All the displays, everything went upstairs. And I wanted to open because I wanted to show that the village was coming back and that we would be back again. And there's a very special sense of community that comes within a disaster area that only people who are in it can truly understand. And what our relationships became through that was a constant reinforcement of the sense of community.
This is the Maple Leaf Malt and Brewing Company. This, like so many businesses, devastated by the flooding, and they've had to close. Now, I talked to Margaret, the owner, and she's so optimistic. If everything works out, she'll be open before Christmas. The Country Store, the oldest building in Wilmington, dates back to 1760, was devastated by the flood.
We moved merchandise to the second floor as fast as we could to save our merchandise. This room, the flooding went just to almost to the ceiling.
So you're